Hello, and welcome to the Investor Guys Podcast, the ultimate podcast for serious real estate investors in the know. Join your host, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills, as they share their expert insights, strategies, and tips to help you succeed in the world of real estate investing. Get ready to level up your investment game with the Investor Guys Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Investor Guys Podcast. How are you, Bill?
I am doing excellent, my brother. So this is Kevin Mills. I'm Bill Barnett. We are the Investor Guys Podcast. Thanks for being here. So, Kev, today, let's talk about markets. What do you think?
Yes.
Some different places that you like to go and why, places I like to go and why. And I've got a little secret surprise as to a place that not this year, not next year, but as the next 4 or 5 years turn, I think will be one of those markets we look at and we're going to be all over it. So,
okay. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing that. And since you're gonna start with that one, I was originally thinking of starting with Las Vegas because that's one that's on both of our lists. But I want to mention something I think is going to be. It's a secret, but I think it's going to be up and coming before the next couple of years, and that is Space Coast. And we have seen Space Coast, just like Houston, go through surges because of the space program. And as probably everybody knows, NASA is now using the Tesla or SpaceX rockets, and they have subcontracted with Elon Musk and SpaceX to provide those rockets for any number of things, including putting astronauts back up on the moon.
Yep.
And putting boots on the ground in Mars. And that is a big push that is going to be occurring over the next easily 5 to 30 years in the Space Coast. Right now, you can buy properties in Space Coast for under $100,000. And they go to up to $1 million because there's some nice houses in Space Coast as well. Strategies are going to be everything from cash flow rentals to flips because there's a lot of properties in Space Coast that could use some repair.
Now,
so
people know, Kev, based on there may be some people out there that geographically don't have a good idea where that is. So tell us where Space Coast exactly is.
Space Coast is Central Florida coast on the East Coast. So for those of us old folks like Bill and I, we remember I Dream of Jeannie. And Major Nelson and Jeannie lived in Cocoa Beach. Cocoa Beach is part of Space Coast. It's actually the southern end. So Satellite Beach, Cocoa Beach, all the way up to north of Titusville. That entire area that is around Cape Canaveral is all considered Space Coast. Now, to a greater degree, you could come inland even as far as Orlando, because Orlando is about a 45-minute drive from Cape Canaveral and Point Canaveral. So that entire area, Orlando's already growing, and we'll cover that, in a different segment. But Orlando's already growing. Central Florida is already growing at the rate of 1,000 people a day, and that was before coronavirus. After coronavirus, when we've got people coming in from New York like crazy, and I see it literally every day in Florida. It's going to be growing even faster. But Space Coast right now, for that hidden gem, that jewel that a lot of people, it's not on their radar. This is the time to start buying it up before it does get on people's radar and before prices go up. You probably go as far as Daytona even and call it Space Coast.
Nice. And Cocoa Beach, one of the coolest names in our country.
Yes, and you know what? Cocoa Beach is actually a pretty cool community. You have in Satellite Beach, you have Andrews Air. Is that Andrews? Patrick Air Force Base is in Satellite Beach, which is immediately south of Cocoa Beach. So you have a military. And whenever you've got a military base nearby, you have a strong rental market as well. So you've got that military base, and then you've got NASA just to the north of Cocoa Beach. So Cocoa Beach, Satellite Beach, Titusville, Melbourne, that entire area, again, it's ripe right now. It is a sleepy little area. It has had a lot of strong markets, especially when we were in the late 60s and early 70s, and we were putting those Apollo's up to the moon. It was a booming area. There was a while under the Bush administration that it was a booming area. And again, like I said, with the renewed interest in the moon and Mars, I think it's going to be a good place. And I myself am going to be looking more in Space Coast. It's about a 2-hour drive from where I am right now. I go to Orlando about every other week. So when I do Orlando from now on, I'm going to be looking at Space Coast as well.
So, and where you go is based on a lot of different things, but you got to know why you're going there. So we know that Space Coast is going to have a huge influx of people coming in. Forget everything else. Just take this little pocket here because of the space program. All prices are going to be going up because of that. Then you add everything else on the fact that it's the beach, that it is Florida, so you get great weather. Those kind of things really start to push a market, and those are things that you need to know. And the thing that I always harp on is, what are the jobs like in the market? Well, with the space program exploding, jobs are going to be much more plentiful in that area, and that's hugely important for what's going to be happening to real estate. So don't just pick out a market, pick out why do I like this market. And you might end up liking a market you never thought about because all of the parameters that support a good market are there. So, my favorite outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth market is Vegas. I love Vegas, and I love it for a lot of reasons. But the biggest thing I love about Vegas is that when the push was happening and everybody and their brother was buying Vegas in early 2000, mid 2000s, I was telling people, stay away from Vegas, stay away from Detroit. And that's where people were flocking like crazy. And I said, the reason that I think you ought to stay away from it is it's just investors selling to investors. And that's a financial musical chairs. The music's going to stop sometime. And so I stress to all my clients, stay out of those markets. We'll come back in those markets as they change. Now we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and we're going to talk about what's happened in Vegas, why we like it, and what we see going forward. Hang around for more Investor Guys podcast. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
Absolution X, limited editions, lifestyle apparel like none other. Get yours today at absolutionx.com.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
reallykevin.com. Weekly recorded coaching sessions. Learn, grow, find resources, opportunities and more. You'll find it all at reallykevin.com.
And we are back with Investor Guys. And just before the break, Bill was talking about Vegas. Vegas is actually on both of our lists, and Bill knows that already too. And one of the factors about Vegas and Space Coast that are the same, and not so much about other markets that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of shows to come, except for maybe Bill's surprise, because I'm not sure what his surprise is. But we also have a very strong tourism industry in both of those markets. So one of the strategies that works for both of those markets is a strategy we talked about before on this show, and that's Airbnbs. You could do a property and put it aside for an Airbnb in either of those markets, and you've got a strong strategy as well. So that adds another layer, even of protection, because I know people who do cash flow properties, and in between rentals, they'll actually set up 6 months where they do it as an Airbnb. So they'll do like a 6-month rental, and then on the peak season, which in Florida is easy to predict, during the peak season, they keep it available for Airbnb. And then during the down season, they do a regular 6-month rental. things to consider. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you so you can keep on your Las Vegas.
Okay. So here's what I love about Vegas right now. And I mean right now, in the middle of all this insanity, because this will end sooner or later. It's either going to end or America's going to end. And if the Democrats win, it could be America ending. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'm getting back on real estate. So what you'll see is that right now, property values in Vegas are getting hammered pretty good because there is so little tourism. If you go look, I was planning a trip, and I usually stay at the Wynn when I go out there, and I love it ever since it opened. I've been going pretty regular since '86, but when I went online just to confirm, okay, yeah, they're open, and how's everything look? You start going through, they have little video clips of inside the casino. You start looking at them, and Blackjack, which normally has 7 or 8 players, has 3, the way they've configured because of COVID. Now, we are going to get to a point where things are normal pretty much. I mean, they're already, this University of Florida is already requesting from its board of trustees and from Governor DeSantis down there that to have a full stadium for their home football games. And we're going to see that stuff. And it's going to be places that are aggressive and need to survive. One of the things going on right now that I'm very excited about is all of the COVID deaths are being re-examined, all of the paperwork to see, well, was it really a COVID death, or simply did they have the flu, COVID flu, and we marked it that way because we incentivized hospitals to do that by paying them. Well, when this stuff gets sorted out, straightened out, virus gone, vaccine, whatever it is, and businesses open again, Vegas is going to freaking explode. And there's so much pent up demand for there. Now, on top of that, you've had the Raiders move out there, opened up this amazing stadium, right? If you go out the back of Mandalay Bay, it's just across the highway. And just, gorgeous, gorgeous facility. And when you've got tourism, and so now you've got a city that's got its own NFL team, but everybody that is going to Vegas will be like, hey, like I would look at going when the Cowboys are going to play. I don't know if the Cowboys play the Raiders or not, but if they were that might be a time that I would look at going. And I know other people that are doing that are Bears fans, or they're Jets or Giants or whoever, going, hey, you know what? Let's look at the Raiders schedule. When does our team play them? And if we're planning a trip, let's plan them, and we can go take in the ball game while we're there and see this great new stadium. I think that market is going to absolutely erupt when sanity returns to America, and I think we're starting
to put that into perspective. Anybody who's ever been in Vegas on a fight night, okay? Yeah. They know that Vegas is absolutely bananas. It's crazy. It is packed with people. And that is for a fight. Imagine if you're talking about a football game between 2 rivals that are notorious rivals. Imagine if you're talking about getting into playoffs and you've got teams that are going into the playoffs playing in that stadium. You got to remember, being Vegas, it's not going to just be the Raiders playing in that stadium. Sometimes there's going to be other teams that don't include the Raiders playing in that stadium. The other thing that Vegas is going to see with that stadium is the ability to attract Major League Soccer, for example, other teams that can play in that stadium. The reason I like Vegas, though, Bill, and this is because I just moved from California and I saw it happening for the last more than 10 years. There is an exodus, a mass exodus of people from California leaving, and they're moving to Vegas because they're familiar with it. Where I lived in South Orange County in the Los Angeles area, we're talking about a 4-hour drive to Vegas. So a lot of people spend a lot of time in Vegas. It was so close that I actually had an office for years in Vegas as well as in Southern California. A lot of people are giving up California and moving to Vegas because it's more affordable. There's no state income tax. The repressiveness that they are suffering in California, they don't have in Nevada. There are a lot of features to Nevada that we don't have or didn't have, I didn't have in California, and that's a better education. Many of the parks are better, and that's because even though it's not a state tax, the gaming industry pays taxes, and it pays for things like education, it pays for things like parks, it pays for things like infrastructure. So you go from California, where you've got giant potholes in roads where you don't have ice, but you still have giant potholes and cracks and chunks out of the road, to Vegas, where the roads are in great condition and you have a better infrastructure, you've got better parks, you have a better education. So we've got a lot of people exiting California for Vegas, other places as well. But that is the primary reason I like Vegas. Going back and forth to Vegas a lot, even just before I moved from California. They are building like crazy in Vegas, and it's not just new casinos. It's not just new office buildings downtown. It is thousands and thousands of homes. The Lake Las Vegas area is growing like crazy. I got phone calls when I was in California asking me to send agents out to Vegas to help them do their pre-sales in their houses for Las Vegas, because agents can work in Vegas as well when they're in California. That is one of the big attractions for me for Vegas, is because I know that there's going to continue to be that influx of Californians because things aren't changing in California. Now, we're way over time for this break, so we'll make it up on the next one. But let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll see you in a minute.
You are watching the Investor Guys podcast.
The Investor Guys podcast will be back shortly.
Absolution X. Lifestyle apparel like no other. Only at absolutionx.com. Get yours.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
Get ready for power, for success, for solutions and answers. It's all in one place. www.reallykevin.com. Education, opportunities, coaching, and so much more.
All right, back for our final segment on Investor Guys podcast. And we've been talking about Vegas and Space Coast, and we'll go ahead and not confuse you too much with adding another one to this particular episode, but we are going to do some more episodes in the next few episodes. We're going to talk about other markets that we like. But I want to hear about this hidden gem of a market that you've got in this last segment.
All right, I think that I'm glad you're sitting down, because this
I need to hold on.
buckle in. So I want you to think about there's some mass exodus going on out of California. That's not going to slow down anytime soon until, let's face it, until common sense starts to come back in the government there. That's not going to happen with Democrats out there. There's going to have to be a red wave hit California for it to regroup. That'll happen. Because it's just so out of control that even Democrats are going, what in the world is going on here?
Yeah,
so
it has to happen.
There will be a time in the next few years that there will be a swing back to more conservative views in the state of California. And a lot of the crazy things that have been done for the last few years are being done right now are going to be repealed. A lot of these people that have done all this stuff are going to be bounced out on their ears. And as that happens, I think California is going to be just an explosion of people rediscovering all the great things. So you got great climate, you got the beach. And when you've got good weather and you've got the ocean, you've got the trappings for a great market. Well, as they start to cap some of this taxation and maybe even go down some of the taxes out there, and they get rid of all of the are the majority of the crazies that are running things, then you'll start to see industry going, hey, you know what? Maybe that's a great place for us to be. And you'll see jobs start to pick up and up and up and up. There are so many people, they're doing okay job-wise now, but it's not because industry's coming in. It's because there are, guys, so many people have left that redistributing the remaining folks over the jobs means the job market's pretty decent out there. But as you know, there's so many industries that have just, we got Tesla coming to Fort Worth, which I'm just tickled to death about. But you got so many industries that have said, these people are crazy. They don't have a clue. We're out of here. And that will change. Everything is cyclical.
Yeah.
So it may be another 10 years before that cycle hits and California goes to a lot more conservative. And when it does, it's going to explode because people are going to be going, man, it's so great out there. Kevin lived out there for a long time. I lived in LA for a long time. And I thoroughly loved living out there. I had a blast. Now, that was late 80s, early 90s. It was a very different environment than it is today. It will swing back to a more conservative environment somewhere in the future. And I don't think it's going to be that far down the road. And when it does, businesses are going to start jumping. The real estate market will start jumping. And it's going to be the little gem that everybody forgot about for a while.
In California really is beautiful. It broke our hearts to have to leave. We left because of politics, not because we no longer love California. And it's not just the beach. I tell people all the time, you can go from the beach to the desert, to the mountains, to the forest, to farmland, all within the same day, all within a matter of hours. We used to go skiing in the late spring and early summer and still be able to come home. And we lived on the beach and there were people in shorts on the beach. And we had just finished skiing up in the mountains in San Bernardino, and Mammoth often has snow into July. It's if you've ever been to Lake Tahoe where I got married, it's amazing, beautiful place. It absolutely is. It is the politics that drove us out of California in the last probably 15 years in California. I didn't do any investing because the numbers did not make sense. It doesn't make sense right now either, but at some point, as Bill mentioned, it will run through a cycle and we'll go back into California. I thought you had a hidden gem that was ready to go like right now, like we could do a buyer's event in January and go there.
My favorite California story from when I was living there, I've managed several offices, and I had an office in Bakersfield. Well, Bakersfield is over the mountain from LA.
I always called it Oklahoma West.
In January one year, I went up in LA. It was, I don't know, it was 70 degrees or something. It was just normal California January, beautiful weather. And I went up to the office in Bakersfield, and a front moved in, and I got snowbound in Bakersfield. And called my wife, and I was like, you're going to have to turn their TV on, because you're not going to believe when I tell you I'm snowed in. And she's like, what? And turned the TV on, and sure enough, that was one of the lead stories. But one of the, it just happens. It's incredible how diverse that state is from a climate standpoint, and just from one end to the other. And of course, you got Napa, and there's just so many incredible things. If it hasn't all burnt down now with the wildfires.
Giant redwoods, sequoias. There's just so much beauty and so much that California has going for it. It is sad that it has the political climate that it has right now for it. And whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, you have to be able to look at California and say, what the heck are they thinking? But you know what, Bill? We're going to have to talk about California off the air because it is coming up on time for us to call it a wrap. Thanks for joining me. Let's talk about some other markets on our next couple of shows, because I think this is important, especially right now with coronavirus. People need to know markets that are still strong, that are still happening. So from Florida, where we're all opened up, like we're 100% now. Restaurants, bars. I've been driving through downtown. They're open till like 5 o'clock in the morning. It's awesome. So hopefully the rest of the country will get back to that point soon. Thank you for joining us on the Investor Guys podcast. We'll see you here in another day or two. Have a great one. Bill, I'll see you later.
Thanks,
Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the Investor Guys podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on the latest trends and insights in the world of real estate investing. Also, don't forget to check us out and see all of our episodes at theinvestorguyspodcast.com. Email us, contact@investorguyspodcast.com. Remember, the key to financial success lies in staying informed and taking action. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, happy investing.